From chaos to confidence, understanding the bigger picture in investing. Over the past few months, I watched my portfolios shrink. It's rare for everything to decline at the same time. Typically, money doesn't just vanish, it shifts from one asset class to another. But when markets become volatile, that rotation isn't always obvious. I used to think that a drop across the board meant something was fundamentally wrong. But over time, I've come to see these moments differently. Now, instead of asking, why is everything going down? I ask, where is the money moving? For many investors, seeing red across their portfolio sparks fear, even panic. I've been there myself. It's easy to feel like things are spiraling out of control when all you see are losses. In the past, I might have reacted emotionally, selling into the drop just to stop the bleeding. But now I recognize that these downturns often reveal opportunities, not because the pain isn't real, but because cycles like this have played out time and again. The question isn't if there will be a recovery, but when. The trick is to be positioned to benefit when it happens. Rather than running from assets that are temporarily out of favor, I've learned to be proactive and see where capital is flowing next. I've seen firsthand how those who understand the rhythm of these shifts position themselves to gain, while those who react emotionally often lock in their losses. This realization meant I could build a plan of action that was more dynamic than just buying, holding, and hoping I would have enough for the future. Finding clarity in the noise. Recently, as markets whipsawed with every tweet from Trump and Musk, I took a step back. It wasn't the first time I'd seen headlines driving market sentiment in ways that seemed disconnected from underlying fundamentals. In the past, these moments felt chaotic, like the world was being thrown off balance by forces no one could control. But I've come to realize that a sense of chaos is often just the result of missing information. I find that the more I understand about how markets, politics, and global events intersect, the less chaotic things seem. Instead of getting caught up in the fear, I started asking different questions like, why is this happening now? Who benefits from these shifts? What narratives are being pushed? And what's being overlooked? Over time, I noticed that what seemed irrational on the surface often made perfect sense when I considered the motivations of the people making the decisions. Not the motivations that others or my bias may assume, but the actual motivations that often required me to consider through the most positive lens. With that approach, it occurred to me that policies, market movements, geopolitical alliances all have layers that aren't immediately visible unless you take the time to look deeper. That shift in perspective didn't happen overnight. I had to push myself to step outside my comfort zone. I had to listen to perspectives I initially dismissed, to study economic and political systems I once ignored, to recognize that even if I couldn't control these systems, I could learn to navigate them. And once I did, the fog started to lift. Not all at once, but piece by piece, as I saw real-world events play out in ways I never would have anticipated before. Reframing the way we see the world. I used to think that understanding global finance and policy was for economists, politicians, and Wall Street insiders. But the more I learned, the more I realized that these systems were designed by ordinary people, flawed, ambitious, sometimes brilliant, sometimes short-sighted, but ordinary nonetheless. The complexity comes not from the systems themselves, but from how they interact. Once I stopped seeing them as impenetrable and started breaking them down into their basic components, they became easier to grasp. One of the most rewarding parts of building women's wealthy ways has been watching others go through this same transformation. Just recently, a member shared with me, "Susan, I can't believe how fascinating I find all this. I was sure it would be boring and frustrating to pay attention to economics and politics. But now I just wish I'd taken the time to learn when I was 20 instead of 70. Not only do I feel more secure in my financial decision-making, but I love learning and watching what's happening outside my personal bubble." Hearing that reminded me of my own journey. I used to look at the world with the same frustration. I also had felt like I was at the mercy of systems I didn't understand. But the more I engaged, the more I saw how all the moving pieces fit together. And once I started seeing it, I couldn't unsee it. An invitation to see things differently. If the world feels overwhelming right now, I understand. I've been there. But I also know that the feeling of chaos starts to fade when you begin to explore beyond the headlines, beyond the narratives you're used to hearing. I've found that some of the most valuable insights come from unexpected places. It's not always comfortable to step outside of familiar conversations, but doing so has allowed me to connect dots I never would have seen otherwise. Exploring, questioning, learning together is what we do in our community. The conversations are full of people with different beliefs, experiences, and viewpoints. But the one thing we all agree on is this: it is an incredible time to be alive. And being an active participant, capable of embracing the opportunities of today, makes it even better. If you're curious to see how this kind of thinking can reshape the way you approach investing, join us for one of our Friday calls. No pressure, no commitment, just a chance to see if a different way of looking at the world resonates with you.